Hey, this is Mr. C. Thanks for tuning in to 15.3 More Patterns and Equations. We're moving on in 3, 2, 1. Here's your opportunity to check your homework. For each, I circled the equation that you could have. I also wrote in blue another equation you could have. So for each, I had y equals and x equals. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so yesterday we looked at tables, but today the patterns from the tables won't just be like y equals x plus 5. It'll have two operations with it, and you'll see very soon what I mean by that. So how can you use patterns to solve an equation that has more than one operation? Ethan owes his mother, $75. He is repaying her $5 each week. How much will Ethan still owe after 12 weeks? So here's the table. We know that at week 0, when he hasn't paid anything, he still owes $75, but he's paying $5 a week. So I see that at week 1, it went down $5. At week 2, it went down $5. At week 7, it has gone down $35. And so how much will he still owe at 12 weeks? So we have this pattern. This is how much he still owes, and this is what it started at, and we're going to subtract what he pays. So he pays $5 each week, but how many weeks? And if we wanted, we can make this a W. It's just an X. We can make it a W for weeks, with the first clue word of large. So where are we going to put the number 12 in for? If they tell us that he's going to pay for 12 weeks, would I put a 12 in for Y, or would I put a 12 in for the X? Well, if he's going to pay for 12 weeks, I know that the X stands for weeks. So I'm going to put a 12 in for the X. And I know that whenever a number is right next to another number, that means to multiply. So carrying down, I know that 5 times 12 is 60. And he will still owe $15 after 12 weeks, which I think that means that he still needs to pay his mom for 3 more weeks. And you can see that today's skill is basically just taking a number and substituting it in for one of the letters. You do not have vocab notes today. And here's example 1. In example 1, I'm going to give you a second to write down this chart. Once you're done with the chart, we're going to move on in 3, 2, 1. So I see that the chart is completely filled for X, but there's 2 spaces for Y. So there is a trend, and they're not actually asking us to write the equation like last lesson for the chart, but what we're asking is to take the number from X, to put it in and substitute it for X, and then see what you get for Y. So for this first one, I rewrote the equation right here, and I have X as this empty space, and I'm going to substitute 2 in for X. So now I have y equals 2 times 2 minus 7. So I know that's 4 minus 7. And I knew I needed to do multiplication first in PEMDAS. Now I have 4 minus 7. Forwards 4, backwards 7. Forwards 4, backwards 7. Alright, I know that that is backwards 3. So y equals backwards 3. So I'm going to write minus 3 right there. Likewise, I'm going to do the same with the 3. Alright, again, we have the same equation, y equals 2x minus 7. But I'm pulling the 3 from the x row, and in for x, I'm putting the 3. So it's 2 times 3 minus 7. And what do I get for y when the x is 3? So I'd multiply first, and I'd carry down my subtraction. And then I have forward 6, but backwards 7. And that would end up being backwards 1. So I'm going to write backwards 1 right there. Now my chart is complete, and I'm wondering if you wrote your work for each problem. Moving on to the next one in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so we're still on example 1, but I'm going to zoom in on part 2 of example 1. Alright, please write the equation, and please also complete this table. We're going to move on in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so for the first one, using this pattern, We want to find out what t will be if d is 0. Alright, so I'm going to go back to the equation, and where there's a d, I'm going to put 0. So I got t equals -5 times 0 plus 5. I know that anything times 0 is actually 0, so I have 0 plus 5. I did multiplication first. Then I get t equals 5. So 5 goes right there. Likewise, I'm going to do the same with 1, with a second clue word of mirror. -5 times 1 plus 5. So now I have t equals, I'm going to do multiplication first. -5 plus 5. When I go backwards 5 and forwards 5, those cancel out, so I get 0. And that is the end of example 1 problems. Moving on to example 2, where I'm going to ask you to do it first, and then you come back for the answer. Did you get both clue words? 2 of them. Here is example 2, problem number 1. Please write the equation, please write the table, and please fill in the table after substituting 6 for x and 8 for x. What do you get for y in that situation? I'm going to show you in 3, 2, 1. Alright, here's my work. Here's x equals 6. I substituted in for x the number 6. I know that half of 6 is 3. And here's my other work, and I filled in my table. Moving on to number 2 of example 2 in 3, 2, 1. Here's number 2 of example 2. Please write the equation, please write the table, and please fill in the table with the missing values once you substitute in for x. I'm going to show you the answers in 3, 2, 1. There are my answers for each of the substitutions with my work, which you should have. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Here's your first independent practice problem. I'm looking at this, and I know that I'm going to substitute in for q, and it's going to be the opposite of whatever I put in for q. So for example, on the first one for -2, I'm going to have p equals the opposite of backwards 2 plus 6. I know that the opposite of backwards 2 is actually positive 2, and I'd carry down the rest. And that's me helping you with the first one. I'm going to show you the answers to this one in 3, 2, 1. There's my work for first independent practice. I wanted to show you that the opposite, or -0, the opposite of nothing is still nothing. If you multiply something times 0, you still get 0. Showing you the next one in 3, 2, 1. Alright, Elizabeth is using 1-inch square tiles to decorate a wall. Use the equation p equals 2t plus 2, meaning that you should write this, to make a table to show the perimeter p of t tiles in a single row when t is 1, 2, 3, and 6. I'm going to help you make that table. So we want to find out what p is when t is 1, 2, 3, and 6 using this equation right here. Go ahead and substitute those in, and I'm going to show you in 3, 2, 1. There's your answer for the last independent practice. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. At this time, please do Khan Academy. There is not a video, but there is practice, and then you may choose one of these 2 options. You are awesome.